Welcome into the Sports Objective podcast, the unofficial podcast of the Pirates, where we multitask, do a lot of things, including homework with the kids. I'm Dave Richmond, along with Bubba Rosenbaum. How are you, man? Are you doing the virtual thing tonight? I'm not hearing you, Bubba. I guess you still got it on mute.
Of course.
There we go.
There we go. Great opening for the show. But yeah, and the kids are doing that. Tomorrow, virtual for everybody, teachers and students. And then the B-Day students will be coming to us on Thursday and Friday.
That's crazy. And a guy that I know, Bubba, we're very excited to have lots of children in the house. There was a show back in the 80s that my kids absolutely love today, thanks to YouTube. And now that we have to, of course, have every season that we finally do is Full House. A guy that has a full house. He knows all about it. Right, Bubba?
Most definitely. I'm very excited to have on the program, formerly of ESPN, now the CBS Sports Network, Dave Ryan. Dave, welcome in.
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me. I'm going to do you one better, Dave. We go back to the 1970s. You remember that show?
The Brady Bunch.
8 is enough.
Oh, 8 is enough.
I think back in the day. I'm so old I remember that show. Full House is great, too. Full House is a classic. But, yes, if you include 2 kids at college, we have 8. We have 8 total. So wow. It is a full house. It's 8 is enough. And let's also add in the 3 dogs, 3 cats, and at last count, 13 chickens.
Wow.
13 chickens. So there is a lot in there. There's a lot happening in the Ryan household. So the door is closed. We should have enough privacy for you guys mentioned homework. Like someone will come in and ask me for a peanut butter sandwich at any moment. It's pretty much a regular thing. You guys know the life now. We're in the era of COVID, unfortunately, and everything's on Zoom, everything's on StreamYard, everything's on your computer. It's all virtual and digital. So it's a new normal for sure.
Yeah, my daughter, I can guarantee you after the show, I'm not a betting man, but at least put $10 on it that she's going to ask me, say, Daddy, I'm hungry. And even though she's had a whole bunch to eat or opportunity to eat, and then she's always going hungry.
Yeah. Every night at bedtime. Okay, everyone have their teeth brushed. Yeah, okay, let's get one more story. Okay, very good. Everyone in bed. Oh, and two hands go up. I'm hungry. Daddy, I'm hungry. Every
I'm
night.
Thirsty.
Regardless of how you plan it out. And at some point, Dave, that you guys are dads, you know like this well. At some point, they'll stop asking and just do it themselves. But we're not there yet.
Yeah, Bubba, you and I always talk about all that we're juggling right now, and we talk about not that it's a burden. We love our kids, but we have 2 kids. Well, this guy's got eight kids, 6 at home. So I won't complain anymore. I'm not complaining. I'm kidding. Very happy to have you on. Lots to talk about. I guess we could be complaining because, Dave, we want to have sports, and we do have some sports when it comes to college football. Bubba, I haven't even had a chance to talk to you. It's been so busy, but NC State may have to push their game back to September the 26th because a few players and all, they're going to be quarantined for ACC protocol for 14 days, and they may not be ready to play their game on September the 12th, which means, and I was like, here we go, where not that we're an ACC show, but being that it's college football and it hits close to home, I mean, it could easily happen to us. So hopefully we have our game on September 12th against Marshall with no fans. And one thing that Dave brought up is, Bubba, I know you've been worried about it, no tailgating.
Mm-hmm. Man.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, you knew that was certainly headed that way. Maybe it will get to the point later in the season where it can occur maybe on a minimal basis or something, perhaps, but probably not. But at this point, like Kyle and I were discussing last night, our other co-host, Dave, at this point, we'll be feeling very blessed if we have football, period.
Yeah. Bubba, the way I look at it these days, I didn't think Major League Baseball or the NBA in the bubble or the NHL in their 2 hubs in Toronto and Edmonton could make it work. I just didn't think. I think everyone just felt so just down and kind of beaten down by this and seeing the tragic results of what's happened with COVID to so many people and families across our great country. But they have done it. The NHL's had no positive tests, and the NBA is rolling along. Some of the hockey games I'm sure you guys have watched have been phenomenal to watch and take in. Is the atmosphere the same without a crowd? No. But I think watching most of the shows that I've seen, the dub of the crowd noise. Our goal, especially with the horn sounding, is pretty close. Not the same, but it feels pretty good to watch those games. And yes, there have been some delays and series and games canceled in Major League Baseball or postponed. It created a bunch of doubleheaders with positive tests. But you know what, guys? For the most part, I think it's gone extremely well considering where we were maybe even a month ago. It feels pretty good that so many sports are happening. It's great to watch it. It's great to follow it and track it and see your favorite team in action and think about the future. Because maybe, well, we talked about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, I didn't think it would happen at all.
Right.
It's day by day, to be sure, but it feels better. It really feels better right now.
Earlier today, I was listening to an interview from Pirate Radio right there in Greenville. It was from yesterday, archived on Facebook, and just listening to that. They had Todd Graffinini, former voice of the Tulane Green Wave, and now the New Orleans Pelicans. Excuse me. Todd was just talking about what an excellent job the NBA has done with the bubble and just the execution of all its protocols and so forth.
It's amazing to see, really, Bubba, how so many teams could come together. I know the MLS did the same thing in Orlando and had some trouble with some teams that had to go back with positive tests. But for the most part, they were able to work it all out and declare a champion, which is amazing to me. It takes incredible discipline, I think. I've spoken to people in Edmonton and Toronto on the hockey side who are away from their families for 80-plus days in a row. That's a long time. No one in or out. I mean, it is a very strict bubble. I covered an event called the 5 Tournament in Las Vegas last month, and that was a very strict bubble too. It was a 3-on-3 basketball event. Nate Robinson and Mike Bibby and some former NBA studs were part of that. It's pretty cool to call it. I'd never done 3-on-3 basketball. It was really fun. And they had their own hotel. So it was literally, we got there, got tested, went to the hotel, masks on all the time. The bus would take you to and from the game, and that was all. You couldn't leave the hotel. So I think it really takes an organized effort. It takes discipline on everyone's part to buy in and believe it. But if you do, great things can happen. And I think the NBA and NHL are a good example of that.
No doubt about it. And a matter of fact, those two were, people were criticizing them way before about, almost like it was a science fiction movie, Dave. But that's what the world we're living in. Science fiction movie, a really bad one. But the very fact that the bubble, every time you hear the bubble, you definitely don't think, it's not normal. But they've done extremely well. I think with those 3 sports, they're making lemonade. They know it's not the best, but it's a lot better than if we had none at all. And you just say, oh yeah, you remember that season back in 2019-20? We didn't have a champion. And when everybody's talking about Major League Baseball, well, yeah, it's only 60 some games or whatever the regular season, but the fact of the matter is that's better than not having a season. I mean, we just have to, our standards of what we knew in the past right now are totally different. And I have a feeling that they'll go back to, once we get post-COVID, that we'll see a lot of the stuff. Maybe there's some safety protocols that will be different. But as far as having regular seasons and fans in the stands and all that, it's going to take time, but it will happen again. I think that people are being a little dramatic to say that it'll never, I know what they mean, never be the same, but I think we need to be cautious in the media by trying to make it sound like that we're never going to have sports again, or we're never going to have, I mean, it's almost like that insinuation. They never come out and say we won't have fans, but it's going to be way different. And I'm like, well, what else? I mean, eventually we have to, at some point down the line, not in the recent future, but obviously down the line, we'll have to go back to normal.
At some point, Dave, it's really hard to say when that's going to be.
Right.
I agree with you. I mean,
That's right.
It could be, when this thing first got going, my wife and I were talking about life with our kids and families and how long would it be. And I thought, without a vaccine at that point, when I first came home from the basketball tournament in Cleveland, which never happened beyond the first round. So the quarterfinals are about to take place, and went to a press conference, and the commissioner canceled, and he hightailed to the airport. It was pretty scary at that point. I remember even talking in mid-March. I thought, well, without a vaccine, it's going to be a full year at least before we can get back to any sort of organized sports, team sports. The fact that we're where we are now, the college football's coming soon, the NFL is coming soon, NHL, NBA, Major League Baseball have found a way. I think it's almost a miracle from where we were in March. And as a broadcaster, we're excited. We know life is not going to be the same covering the games for sure. But we're going to do our very best to narrate whichever games we're assigned to, whatever sport we're doing. And I do think that when people watch games, and I do now as a fan because I haven't worked very much at all in the last 5 months, it's a relief. It feels good to watch a sport because it gives you normalcy. So, if you're up to go watch an NHL game, these playoffs, it's so exciting. The hockey playoffs to me have just been a blast. It's like, okay, this feels good. For a minute, I can just forget about what's happening in the world. There's so much going on and just focus on a game, which is fun. And that's what I think we in the sports media love so much about our jobs. We provide amusement for people. It's recreational. And we have to do it and get paid, which is an amazing benefit. So I've always loved this job. I've been in the air 31 years, and I've never wanted to do anything else, to be honest with you guys. And, it's been a long summer with the 8 is enough crowd here at the Ryan House in Florida, but just can't wait to get back to it, and excited that it's going to happen.
Let's talk about your career. I was going to ask you, Dave, as far as with the CBS Sports Network, have you heard anything about? I'm a broadcasting nerd. I know Bubba's. We're turning him into a broadcasting nerd too, but he's getting better all the time. I'm proud of him.
Join the club, Bubba. Join the club.
Yeah, but the very fact of, have you heard a schedule? Have you heard anything about any games?
Dave, what I do every day is, we talk about our touching base basically in the world now. Always after these phones. I mean, there's just hundreds of them. And you read so many different articles from so many different writers to get a feel and a pulse for what's happening. And I check several times a day. Even Google 2020 college football. Anything happened that I missed maybe on one of my alerts on one of my apps on one of the sports, and I have everyone available. And I haven't seen anything yet in terms of a national schedule, a TV grid. The TV partners haven't picked yet. So we're all sort of just sitting there and waiting. I think, Dave, I check 2 or 3 times a day because I know we're getting close. But I'm like everybody else, just sort of waiting with bated breath, excited, and hoping for a lot of games to do. It's not going to be the same, but it's going to be college football. I just can't wait to be a part of it.
Now, Dave, talking about football moving forward, I know earlier you were referencing the championships, in the NBA and NHL, et cetera. I was listening to a podcast earlier today. It was just talking about, with 6 out of the 10 leagues playing as of right now with college football, assuming it moves forward, how do you think that will go as far as the college football playoff? And obviously it's going to have an asterisk by it. That goes without saying, but just what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. College football playoff is going to happen. It's going to happen on time. That was in the media, the news today, reported from Bill Hancock and his group. It's almost surreal looking at the preseason poll and the preseason polls and seeing Michigan 10th or 12th and seeing Ohio State top 10 and they're not going to play until January. Look, I'm a safety first guy. As we talk about with a big family, I want to make sure everyone's safe and healthy, especially when it comes to college students. I've got 3 of those of my 8 kids, 3 are in college or med school. So I know when I speak to the relevance and the connection to college age kids. I've got a lot of friends who have student athletes, some of whom are in the Big Ten and the Pac-12 who are going home now. We're quarantined, then they're going home. So it's going to be a very different setup. You can't, I think, say in the end that it's Clemson, Alabama, who knows who wins this year, an ACC team, Big 12 team, Oklahoma has a great season. Can you say they're the true national champion? They're the 2020 national champion. I think that's okay to say that because I think everyone knows 2020 has just been one unbelievably weird year. And I think people look back at that and say, well, the Big Ten and Pac-12 weren't in that year. Well, the Mountain West and the MAC didn't play that year. As you said, 4 of the 10 are out right now. I hope the other 6 stay in the FBS. But in terms of college football playoff, of course, only one of the G5 teams makes it to the New Year's Six with really no chance to make the semis of the championship. And it's a shame the Mountain West and the MAC aren't in. They have great. We do a lot of their football. The Mountain West especially has been tremendous the last several years. So, you know what? You almost hope they could do another game after the spring season, because I think a lot of those 4 leagues we talked about are going to play in the spring. Why not possible for the 6 who aren't, because the NFL draft, and how would you, Trevor Lawrence, how's he going to play again another game in the spring? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So it's going to be a little jumbled. It's going to be a little weird. But the bottom line is we're going to have football, which is great. We'll have a champion, which is great. And then we're going to move on, hopefully, where everyone is together in 2021. It's going to be fascinating to see if the Big Ten plays their winter, spring season, and then the fall, as how that affects recruiting, injuries, coaching staff changes. I mean, it'll be fascinating to watch that. That's a pretty compressed season. But you know what? We talked about sort of the miracle of everything getting back on track in the time frame it did. So I'm sure we can pull that off too. Why not?
Yeah, like you're saying, all those logistical issues on a number of levels in terms of spring football and playing, at least 20, maybe closer to 23 to 25 games in one.
It's a lot of games in one calendar year, right?
One calendar year. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it's not what we're used to. But then again, everything is not what we're used to, Bubba, at this point. There's been so many changes and adjustments, and I think it's just extraordinary. With each state its own governor, and each state its own county and state health commissioners and doctors associated with each conference, having their opinions, and then trying to get together with everyone else in 10 conferences covering so many different states, including Hawaii. I mean, it's really, I think it's a medical miracle that they're going to play as many games they are going to play, and that we're going to have football coming up very soon. To me, it's an incredible plus to our culture and I think the love of sports that we all have.
And a moment ago, you referenced the Big Ten, so kind of a nice segue for me. Commissioner Warren of the Big Ten, it's kind of funny. He has a son who's playing at Mississippi State.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard to believe that his son's going to play there, and the SEC is good to go. Again, I trust the doctors and the medical professionals who provide the Big Ten and their decision. I mean, again, with all the kids that we have and the safety first. My wife and I were talking in March about the game of football itself, 11 on 11, with how many snaps are there? Some teams in the no-huddle spread go to 85, 90 snaps a game. It's a lot of physical contact, especially up front in the trenches. You might have 6 guys going head-to-head 90 times, 30 times in a game, each side of the ball physically. That's a lot of physical contact. I just am so hopeful that we, from start to finish, can get through the season safely. That to me is the most important thing. The football is going to be great. The safety is going to be even better.
No doubt. Maybe this will be the year that a league like the American, who's had a UCF, or a Memphis, Cincinnati, who's been right there, a one-loss team, or maybe even an undefeated team, breaks through and shows the nation, even though it would certainly have its doubters if they did get into the college football playoff and had success. Everybody, or at least most people, would say, "Oh, it's just happening because of everything, all the circumstances with 2020." But it would be great for the American nonetheless.
Yeah, and having done their game since 2014, it's been really cool to be a part of that league. We've had some. Corey Chavis and I mostly have done the games on CBS Sportsnet. Had some really exciting American Conference games to watch and be a part of. That league, and we talk about Group of 5 football, and we always are such proponents of the G5, whether it's coming to Mountain West, Conference USA, or the American and the MAC. There's such great football and plenty of pros. You look at it, and every NFL roster has someone either from D2, from the FCS, or from a D5. That's very common. Sometimes couple starters on one NFL team will have a group of 5 players. So it's great football. I wish nationally the respect was there. It just isn't from a national media standpoint, and it never has been. And I don't think, regardless of what we say or coaches and players say, the statements that UCF doing so well a couple of years ago, going all the way to win their bowl game and beat Auburn on a huge stage. It's not going to matter. I've been at CBS Sports at 11 seasons, and I know it's not going to matter. in the big picture. But you know what? You're absolutely right, Bubba. I mean, this could be the year with a compressed schedule that maybe one of those teams, because hey, college football playoff is happening. That means one team gets in the New Year's Six Bowl. That means one team has a chance. Whether it's ECU having a breakout, brilliant season, bounce back season, whether it's Cincinnati, it's been knocking on the door, been so good, or Memphis again, like you talked about. UCF, maybe they're back to where they were a couple years ago. I love the discussion because to me, it's like the NCAA basketball. We have a Loyola making the Final Four, or George Mason making a Final Four runner, or Jim Larinaga. These just incredibly exciting Cinderella stories. Why not have one in college football every year?
That's what I was talking about, Dave, with the for me personally, I'm not anti-college football. I just don't like the made-for-TV event. That's what it is. If it's I don't see it. It's better than what we had, better than the BCS. But if you're going to make a legitimate playoff, then a team like UCF, they're like a rival to us, being a conference mate. But if they win 25 straight, they should have been in a national championship game, or at least the Final Four, in my opinion. And I don't care. And this year, Bubba, you were talking about asterisk. Of course, it's going to be one. If you don't have brand name teams, and oh God, we have to put a team in the American in there. Yeah, it's definitely an odd year. We're going to have to put an asterisk by that, because there's no way they would get in if they're. And I understand there's teams like, I think it's a shame, Ohio State, number 2 in the nation, not going to play. But that's not our fault. Is that our fault that the commissioner made that decision? The presidents made that decision to not play. They made it. They made the decision, like Jay Paterno said last night on our show. They made a decision based on what they knew at that point. We're not going to be ugly to them. I'm just saying, don't put an asterisk or say make excuses for an American team if they do get in it.
Yeah, I agree. This could be a year of a lot of surprises, a lot of amazing things happening in the field. And I mean, really, I think as an announcer, we love upsets anyway. There are two things I love: an upset or a road conference win. Like conference play is hard to win on the road, especially in college basketball. I love what goes into engineering a road win in league play. To me, football or basketball is incredible. So you know what? We may have some just absolutely shocking results in the field. There are teams that have had to suspend play, workouts, because of COVID, of course. It's happened all over the country. So you just hope that things can go off smoothly and that the season can be played and people can be safe and we can just enjoy college football again. I think with that, David, will come some upsets, some amazing moments. It always does. But I said this on the air a million times. I wish we had an 8-team playoff. I don't know why we don't.
Thank you.
I know there are contracts. I know that things exist, require 4 teams for several years, might be a couple more years. So that's public knowledge. It is what it is. But let's get a G5 team in that final 8. Let's get the 5 Power 5 winners, a couple of wild cards, and 1 G5. And let's just see what happens. Let's just play 8. Come on now. I mean, that's the only way to make it fair, Mike.
No doubt about it.
I've been saying that for years, and no one listens to me, guys. No one listens.
I think that one thing that makes me go crazy, Dave, and I know Bubba and Kyle would agree with me, is the very fact that the fans want it. So why not? And plus, that's more content for ESPN, for example, or other networks, whatever. Plus, the fact that the schools would be making even more money. The NFL makes so much money. If you look at the second most popular sport in America, it's college football. College football could be the number 1 sport in America. Who knows if they went to giving the fans what they want. And I think it's hilarious, and I'll make this real point, and because I can go on and on about the playoff, but I think it's hilarious when we say we cheapen the regular season. I'm like, are you kidding me? Games now than in the American and different ones, conference games, I'm watching even closer because, for the example of like maybe UCF or Memphis or Cincinnati, whenever a conference actually does make it, then I could be watching that season. I could be watching those games. Now with to me, I think the conference champions should be the one to get in. For example, like the SEC, if you win the SEC, boom, you're in. It's the hardest conference. And I think that some people get mad. They say, well, what if, Alabama has a brilliant season, they lose an SEC? I say, well, they lost. And that's not, I don't hate Alabama. I'm just saying throwing that team out there. But I just think it's funny how you could actually have a lot of the other divisions have 16 teams. I mean, I'll take 8 at this point. And I like exactly what you said, the one group of 5, because our our school will get to that point again where we're good enough to be competing for championships under Mike Houston in the next 2 years. I really believe the 21 season, Dave, I'm telling you, I've been telling everybody, watch out for the Pirates when you have, a lot of those guys are younger right now, but they'll be juniors and seniors by 21.
Look what Cincinnati did. Look what Luke did at Cincinnati. I think that's a great comparison. Actually, the last ECU game I did was the end of 2018. I didn't see you guys all last year, unfortunately, in my schedule with Corey Chavis. But we saw ECU's game. Might have been Scotty's last game, I think. It was Thanksgiving weekend at Cincinnati, where it was a pretty convincing Cincinnati win. If you kind of look back at the tradition, recruiting, and systems in place that Luke Fickell, these people put in, I think that's what Mike's got in mind. Exactly. So it's a good model and something to follow, I think, for a lot of American Conference teams. And you look at across that league has gotten a lot better over the years. So we've covered it since 2014 when it kind of came into its current form. And obviously UConn has dropped out. They've gone independent. Some programs have gone up and down. But Cincinnati's a program that had a lot of trouble under Tommy, and they've won under Luke a lot. And it clearly can be done. Now, I know Cincinnati stumbled at the end with their games back against Memphis last year, but I mean, I think clearly the American is ready. The American is ready. Now, the key is, can you keep a coach long enough? You know, Nick's not leaving Alabama for a reason. Power 5 jobs are destination jobs for the most part. No one's staying there 2 years to move on. That's always been my huge issue with Group of 5 football versus Power 5. Whether it's paying the coaches, whether it's paying the assistants, whether it's the system in place to keep a young, brilliant coach just where he is, to build up at 5 long enough to keep the big games every year. But it just simply can't. Our current system does not allow that. With pay scales, with coaches shows, bonuses, however it works, it's not in place right now.
Dave, how about in the state of Ohio where you can't play football? You have the situation where Ohio State can't play football, and you have some other MAC teams. But guess what? Cincinnati can play. So all the poor Ohio State think that they have one of their own guys, Luke Fickell. Do you think they go jump on the Cincinnati bandwagon because they can
for the year
actually
probably
watch
January? I mean, you know, I know fans are upset in those conferences, but it's only January. It's not that far to play your season. You know, yes, we've covered a lot of UC football over the years. I love their brand of football. I love the way they're great guy to talk to. It's interesting to hear his defensive mindset, his Ohio State background. So you know what, Dave? Why not? Why wouldn't fans follow? If I were in that situation, I mean, I'm a Syracuse grad, just playing right now. It's good in the ACC, but if I'm a Buckeye fan, why not? I mean, you got to watch games. Why not root on the Bearcats? I mean, they played head-to-head several times the last few years. The games aren't competitive. With Cincinnati beating Ohio State at any point in a regular season. But these are regular times, Dave, so why not jump on that Bearcat bandwagon?
Guys, earlier we were talking about the amount of talent that's in this league. Our other co-host, Kyle Barber, unfortunately unable to join us tonight, but Kyle chiming in since the AAC was created in 2013. There you go. We had 94 players drafted in seven NFL drafts, so between 13 and 14 on average per season.
It's amazing. I was watching I'm a big Vikings fan, lifelong Minnesota Vikings fan. I grew up in the Midwest in Iowa City, Iowa, and you team there, and Vikings my team. And YouTube's an incredible thing. It just pops up games. So I was watching. First, I was watching the Hail Mary game, 75 NFC Championship. So let's call back to Pearson, which still hurts to think about. It breaks my heart this way. But also watching a lot of the Vikings-Niners playoff game from last year. And if you watch that game and look at the starting lineups, I think there are four Group of 5 players in the starting lineup of that NFC playoff game of the two teams, both sides of the ball. So, like Kyle says, there's tremendous talent in that conference. And it really does. I think the American does deserve that Power 5 status, the Power 6. It is what it is in terms of recognition and how the media portrays it. But every time we call a game in the American Conference, I mean, I treat every game like that I call like the biggest game of my career. So you put everything you have into it in terms of preparation.
Now, Dave, kind of shifting gears a little bit. Down through the years, I know you've done a lot of football, men's basketball, etc. So what are some, I know I'm putting you on the spot with this question, but what are some of the top games just right offhand that you recall?
Well, I was lucky enough to be on the sideline for USC Texas, the national championship there, the Rose Bowl. Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart, of course, Vince Young. So I was actually doing ESPN radio sidelines in the corner of the end zone where Vince Young ran. The funny part of that story is in the confusion. So there's, the game's over. Confetti is just all over the place. They're trying to they're roping off players and Mac Brown, and I couldn't find Vince Young for quite a while. So my producer is screaming in my ear, "Where's Vince Young? Where's Vince Young?" Finally, I found the rope off area where he was and got into there with my ESPN. That was an amazing moment. I've covered 20 sports, Bubba, so I've done a lot of different sports. To be honest with you, if it's bowling, it's a 300 game. If it's baseball, it's a walk-off. Major League Baseball, a lot of college baseball, College World Series over the years was fun. Little League World Series, some walk-off home runs, amazing moments in the game on ABC Sports. College hockey Frozen Four was Minnesota versus Maine in St. Paul, Minnesota. So Minnesota wins the game in overtime, and I swear, I close my eyes and I still hear the crowd cheering and the stands were shaking. Like I thought the arena, which is the home of the Wild, St. Paul, was actually going to collapse. It was amazing. Syracuse grad, Syracuse lacrosse. I called for their championships. I mean, it's tough to be neutral in a situation like that. I was in my head hoping for Syracuse to win. So there's some just amazing moments. Army Navy lacrosse. I've done that game many times. The pageantry and the history that goes with that game. And you talk to the players and coaches beforehand, and you see how much it means to them, and you watch the game and call it. And we had overtime last year. 2019, 2020, we didn't have a game. There have just been so many amazing overtime finishes and last-second touchdowns or block shots, three-pointers. It's been a long. It's almost 25 years on national TV and radio. There have been a lot of great moments. Wow. One that stands out. I was doing Major League Baseball for ESPN. It was a league divisional series, and it was Boston at Oakland. I'm going to do it. My first report is in the dugout talking about the Red Sox. At the top of the dugout step, and here's the national anthem playing. I look to my right, Nomar. I look to my left, Big Papi and Manny. I'm thinking, this may be the greatest moment of my life right here. I'm next to these unbelievable Major League stars. Listen to the national anthem about to broadcast for a Major League playoff game. And that was, my dad passed away. Unfortunately, missed my whole national TV career. I wish he could have seen that moment. Like, he was a huge baseball fan. He's the reason I got into sports. He loved sports. And you see the Ranger jersey, like lifelong Ranger, Met fan, big fan. That was a cool moment. That was a pretty cool moment. Sorry for the long answer. There have been a lot of those games that just come out of the wire. I think it's a play-by-play guy who's responsible for the moment because it's going to be on YouTube for the rest of the time. As evidenced by the YouTube algorithm that gives you these games is popular. So you better be good. you better be on the money. You better identify the guy right, so that the fans of that moment can go back and look at it fondly, and not, man, what was he doing? What a terrible call. So I think you have a certain duty and responsibility to really.
Yeah, we got Bubba. I know we have a comment there from Kyle. Another great question for Dave, and then we'll let you go, Dave. I appreciate the time, sure. And we have Chris Vannini from the Athletic coming on, covering the Group of Five. We'll have him on in just a couple minutes. He says at some point this year you'll call a game without any fans in attendance. You were just talking. It's a great question because you're just talking about the roar of the fans at certain your big moments in your broadcasting career. But how strange will that be for you? No fans.
Yeah, it will be weird. It's a good question. When you do games, college football, for example, you always build in a time. You tell your producer, okay, we're Corey and I, or my analyst and I, Danny Cannell, Randy Cross, whoever it might be, we're going to be on the field for a certain amount of time. So we usually, depending on the setup, but I kind of pick you to take the elevator down, then you kind of loop around and go to the end zone. You're amongst the fans. You're amongst the recruits watching the game before the game. They're watching practice and warm ups and getting a big eyeball on what's it might be to be a Pirate one day at ECU. Sometimes, like assistant, now you actually walk right through the crowd and you feel it. And I think that's a big part of the broadcast, the feel of the 50 or 70 or 80,000 people. Not having it will be definitely a big adjustment for us. But luckily, I've done games over my career. I've done spring football at Army 1 year where I swear it was snowing so hard it was yard mark. So I don't think there were many people there that night. We're around practice all the time. We're around workouts, sometimes in a different facility off campus where there are no fans. So we do a lot of work without fans anyway. It'll be harder for sure because the booth has got to create more energy. But I have done some bowling recently. The last shows have been bowling in July and no fans, and you adjust fast. You can't rely on the crowd to carry a moment. You've got to carry a moment. So you might have to talk a little more and fill some more air because usually I'll lay out the business, which we show up, lay out. ECU catches a touchdown pass. It's kind of thick when we're going to say touchdown. Crowd's going to take over. Now, we'll have to fill the air. We'll have to talk more. Bio, stats, facts on the guy. How many catches he had that day. A lot of different things you can plug in, I think, as a broadcaster. But it will be an adjustment to not have the atmosphere in the field of it. But it's going to come back. I think we're all happy and hopeful about that.
Dave, before we let you go, how can people follow your work? And hopefully next time we have you on, we can definitely talk about some games you've got coming up. But right now, how can they follow you on social media? And hopefully here pretty soon, in the next few weeks, we'll have some football games on the CBS Sports Network.
That'd be great. At Dave Rhino 12 on Twitter, that's probably the best one. So it's DAVERYNO 12, Rhino 12. As simple as it sounds, a nickname that a guy named Mike Tirico gave me back in college a million years ago. So that's where that comes from. When we have events to cover and things to do, we will all have it up there and have plenty of stuff to talk about with video and pictures. And let's hope we all have a lot of games to cover really soon. Everyone stays safe.
Hey, appreciate the time. Thank you so much for being on with us. Love to have you back on soon. It's been a lot of fun talking.
Everyone stay safe out there, and we look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, thanks, man. Appreciate it. All right, Dave Ryan there of CBS Sports Network, and of course, formerly of ESPN. Very happy to have him on tonight. And I know, Bubba, we got another great guest, a double header, if you will. That's been on the podcast several times on our traditional podcast. Chris Vannini of The Athletic. Chris, man, how are you?
I am doing well, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for your patience with us tonight. Right a little behind. I wanted to have you on, Chris, tonight. Of course, the Group of Five is what you cover for The Athletic. By the way, folks, The Athletic is a fantastic read, a great website. They have a great app. They do a great job on social media every day. I see stories on certainly on Facebook and I think Twitter as well. But Chris, thank you so much for coming on. And how have things been covering what's normally a busy time for you as far as football is concerned, and now it's covering something that's not sports related, it seems?
Yeah, it's been a weird 3-4 months, really, just not knowing what was going to happen. Taking a crash course in medicine and epidemiology, trying to figure out what these things are. Talking to ADs about whether or not things are going to happen. Schedules getting redone by the day. Conferences dropping by the day, and I'll be honest, I didn't know we were going to get here. I didn't think we were going to get to the start of the season, and we're a couple days away from FCS game technically kicking us off, and then FBS the next week. And, whether or not we finish, I don't know, but we're farther along than I expected, especially especially after a couple weeks ago when the Big Ten and the MAC shut down and thought that was going to cause some more dominoes maybe than it did.
And
Talking about
Chris today.
Sorry, Dave, we have some terrible lag.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Chris and Bubba, for that. I'm not trying to step on you. I was just going to add quickly, Chris, that the American came out today with the fact there's going to be no volleyball or soccer in the fall. They're going to move it to the spring. I don't know if you'd heard that, but I want to get your take on that.
Yeah, not surprising. Conference USA did the same thing last week. You know, when the NCAA moved fall championships to the spring, it only made sense really to move your sports regular season to the spring as well. So not a surprise move by the American. I know a lot of people are saying why are these sports unsafe to play and why is football safe? That's not really on the NCAA because the NCAA has moved all of its championships to the spring, including FCS football. So this is really just about FBS football, the bowl system, the playoff, 6 conferences feeling like they can go forward. So this is not really on the NCAA. I know some people are criticizing them for that, but really today's move by the American was not surprising.
What's your take on some of the scheduling that's been taking place? Army, I think, is back up to 11 games now, and then they have 8 of their 11 games at home, so that's pretty unique. Also, BYU's added several games, the likes of Navy from the American, which is of interest to us, being East Carolina fans. Talk about those 2, and then also some others of note around the country where people were adding games.
Yeah, the independents are in a tough spot. You know, New Mexico State shut it down, UConn shut it down, UMass shut it down. They had trouble finding any games. Notre Dame got joined by the ACC, so they were okay. But, you know, BYU, when the Mountain West shut down, I wasn't sure what BYU was going to be able to do. But they've done a good enough job getting enough of a schedule together. They feel it's worth going forward. Army, the same thing. Not only are they playing, 8 home games, but they're playing 3 FCS teams as well. So they're just kind of gathering whatever they can. They're still going to play Air Force, who, the Mountain West shut it down, but Air Force is still planning to play Army and Navy. I wrote a story about that today. So that's a real tough spot. We see all the time, you see teams schedule games for 10 years, 15 years out in advance. And I think for what you've seen over the last month, teams able to cobble together matchups within days and weeks, it really goes to show you that we do not need to schedule this far out to have games. And I hope that we kind of slow down on that kind of stuff in the future as a result of kind of how things have been handled here.
No question about it, Chris. As far as the athletic is concerned, I want to give you a chance to plug that. I was just talking about when we introduced you how great it is. I know that you guys always have specials running. Do you have anything going on now with one thing I love about it is it seems like our local papers, unfortunately, and different things, they don't have the journalists anymore that have the long, like you guys have. When you write a story, you really write a story and go in depth. I love it. And there's nothing wrong with anybody else, but I love each day where I have a chance to read great articles by yourself and Nicole and different, our good friend David Glenn and different people for different sports in different areas.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Theathletic.com/free trial. We always have free trials going on there. I think it's 7 days right now. Sometimes it's more. We also have, if you go to theathletic.com/green and white noise, you can get 40% off a subscription instead without a free trial. So that comes out to $3 a month. So, just today, college football, we had stories from myself on Army, Navy, Air Force. You had Bruce Feldman on coordinators to watch. You had Andy Staples on what it's like to be a commissioner. You had Max Olson breaking down what the new eligibility rules mean for everything. Nicole Auerbach's breaking news on all the conference movings every day. So I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate all the support always from all the readers. And so if you're not a subscriber and you're still looking to, theathletic.com/free trial or the green and white noise link, which is at the top of my Twitter profile as well. You could just check that out at Chris Vannini on Twitter.
Okay. Want to make sure we get that in for you, and we'll do it again at the end. But love the Athletic, and Bubba knows how much. Do you get ever tired of hearing me talk about the Athletic, Bubba?
No, but Chris, he's certainly not lying. He's always on. He said, "Guys, you got to join. You got to join."
Well, we always appreciate that. We're not. We succeed or fail based on our readers, and if we provide something that people are willing to pay for, and it's been a success so far, and we're incredibly grateful for that. And that's all because of the support from readers and people supporting it like Dave.
Chris, honestly, if you want to know the true story is you came on our show, one of the first guests we ever had on back in the summer of 2018. And because of you coming on, I gave you a chance. I gave the Athletic a chance, and I'm glad I did, that I took a chance. And I've always renewed since the summer, I think it was July of 2018, the first time he came on with us. So I was like, if he's good enough to support us, we'll support him. I'll give it a shot, and I'm glad I did.
Well, I appreciate that always, as always.
Let's talk about college football, and certainly, do you think one of the questions we were talking about, Dave Ryan, but do you think with the likes of the Pac-12, and I know that right now we don't know what's going to happen. It could be tomorrow, next week, that everything just like unravels. Who knows what the way things are right now? I call it the Twilight Zone. Somebody asked me about sports, and they keep asking me every day, will the Pirates play? But as far as the American, do you think this gives us a good chance for the American to have more exposure? Potentially, I'm hearing Phil Steele and other people that are putting UCF in their Final Four, which is like that sounds just as crazy as COVID has been.
Yeah, we have our conference preview stuff coming out next week, and I won't reveal who, but I'll tell you that I have a team from the American in the playoff.
Wow.
It's a weird year. There's a lot of reasons for it. I think for one, they probably have to go undefeated to start, but it is a showcase, and especially this first couple of weeks when the ACC is not starting until the 12th. The SEC, I think the Big 12 does well. The SEC doesn't start, I think, till the 26th. So there are going to be a few weeks here where Group of 5 football is the majority of the football you see on TV. So it is absolutely an opportunity to showcase that. And Dave was just saying it. The American is a very, very good conference, and it deserves to have a bigger spotlight, which it will have. Also, the Sun Belt and Conference USA. And if there is a spring season, the MAC and the Mountain West as well will certainly get more attention. So, it's obviously the circumstances are obviously terrible and unfortunate, but in terms of, moving forward, if things move forward, yeah, it's an opportunity for the league to further showcase, what it can do. Last year, the American was rated higher than the ACC in a lot of advanced ratings. You take out Clemson, you take out Clemson at the top, you take out UConn at the bottom, and these conferences are pretty even. So it's unfortunate we won't get those American versus Power 5 crossover games. Obviously, that's one reason the American doesn't want to go to more conference games. They want to stay at 8. They want to play those P5 games and get those wins. So it's unfortunate we won't get to see those. I know UCF travels to Georgia Tech, but other, it'll still be fun seeing a lot of these big, high-profile American matchups.
Yeah, you talk about UCF, and the Knights actually come to Greenville as of right now on September 24th. So that will be game 2 for the Pirates, because the Pirates' September 19th game against Norfolk State was, of course, postponed to a later date in a future year.
Yeah. The schedules are going to keep changing. I know, UCF had wanted to keep North Carolina on their schedule. Obviously, that couldn't end up happening. We see now NC State has had more outbreaks. There's a chance they may have to delay their game. I think they open with Virginia Tech. So, these schedules are going to keep changing as we go.
Yeah, there was a story I sent to the guys before the show a couple hours ago that I think it's from the Virginia Tech site for 24/7 Sports. But anyway, they actually are saying that with the outbreak that State had, there's a potential that game is supposed to be the kickoff for their season, September 12th, being this ACC, so conference-only schedule. Obviously, they would have to push that game from September the 12th all the way to the 26th, which would mean that's about the time that I know the SEC, that's their first game that they're going to have. So what the ACC, I think, was thinking is, hey, we push up the games like the September 12th, we'll get a jump start But now, who knows what will happen if that game, and there might be some games that are not played, and there might be some situations where it looks like that we're already right now, but certainly with after the fact that you'll have teams playing. Some teams will play 8 games. Some people may play 10 games. The committee is really going to have a tough assignment this year. Instead of just putting 4 brand name teams for a made TV event, they're going to have to really do their homework, I think, to be able to figure out who is the 4 that are really the most deserving.
Yeah, I don't really know how they're going to do it. You're going to have canceled games. You're going to have stuff pushed back. The case for pushing games starting later, like the SEC and originally some of the other conferences, was to buy you some more time, to hope things get better. The Big Ten was originally going to start week 1, but they were going to have a bunch of bye weeks so you could make up games later in the schedule. So, different schools went different ways in terms of how they wanted to approach this. I'm curious. I don't know when the polls come out, but how do you're going to have teams that could be like, what, 3-0 before Alabama even plays a game? So, I rank all 130 teams every week for The Athletic. Now I think it's down to 76 right now, but I'm leaning heavily toward putting all that rating toward teams that have played games. So if you win your first game, don't care who it was, you're probably going to go ahead of a 0-0 team, at least for a week or two until everybody starts playing, because I don't know any other way to judge it until we actually have games to happen. Like the AP poll comes out, Clemson and Ohio State's in there, Big Ten teams are in there. It's like why? We're just going to change within a few weeks. So it's really hard to do. I don't really fault anybody for doing it any other way, but it's going to be unlike anything we've ever had before.
And Chris, out of curiosity, where do you have ECU? I was thinking the latter part of the 70s there, or 60s, or where would you have the Pirates? Putting you on the spot.
I have not done that yet. I've not done the whole 76. I can tell you I have ECU currently. How many teams are there now? 11. So I have them between 9th and 10th. But with Tulsa, I know I kind of go back and forth on them in terms of where I have them ranked in the American. I've yet to put – I did the conferences. I've yet to put them all together in terms of a whole type of deal yet.
Yeah, that's one of those things going into the season, just based on where our program's been, and just the extreme lack of experience. Even though we have some talent and size now on the defensive front, it's certainly understandable why we're being picked where we are. But I do think if the defense can come along a little faster than a lot of folks think they probably will, then we can surprise some people like we about did Cincinnati and SMU last year, and maybe be on the verge of flirting with a 500 or a winning season. Yeah,
I mean, I'm really curious to see, Holton Ayers and how the offense looks after those last handful of games really exploded offensively, kind of out of nowhere. And if the defense can catch up, I know Dave kind of said the same thing, but 2021 could look like a pretty good type of season if things trend in the right way. And, everybody's going to get a year back now, potentially from the NCAA year. So I think that's certainly another good building block for Mike Houston and what they want to do.
And I want to ask you, Chris, have you heard anything? We haven't, but have you heard anything regarding as far as I was talking about the craziness? I want to ask you another question about the number of games. Do you know how many, like, for example, East Carolina, we've lost 2 games. We lost South Carolina being SEC only schedule. We lost Norfolk State because they're not playing. We have 10 games. Do you know what, as far as eligibility to get to a bowl, would that be 5-5, or would we still have to go 6-4? I mean, it's still hard to know.
I think it would be, I don't know for sure. I think it would be 5-5 if you have 10. I think you just have to have a 500 or better record. I think I can't say that for sure, but that would be my guess. I don't know what the state of bowl games are. Right. Our team's going to want to travel for them. I know the Red Box Bowl already shut down. Still a lot of questions about the postseason yet that we just don't have answers to yet.
And we don't have enough. And you mentioned 76 teams, and there's 42. Well, I guess maybe 41 bowls. So if that's the case, you're still going to be 6 teams shy of of having enough teams for bowls. So as of right now, I mean, that thing could change. It's so fluid right now. That thing could change tomorrow, you know?
Yeah, it's every day it's uncharted territory, and they're kind of just figuring it out as they go.
Being a journalist, is this a good time for you guys, being that it's very unusual, or is it more stressful because normally you get in your routine of writing stories and you kind of know what you're going to not know what you're going to write, but you know what I mean? You have, being that you're a great journalist, you know, kind of a path, but now it just seems like it's been almost like if it's football, there's been like an audible at the line of scrimmage every day.
Yeah, I mean, just personally, like, you know, it made for more interesting stories in the summer, in your Mays, your Junes, your Julys. But once we got to middle of July and it's like media day time and getting ready for camp, to not have that sucks. It sucks to not be able to go do that. You're just talking to people over the phone or on Zoom or something like that. You're not getting a real feel for anybody. You're not meeting anybody. So it sucks just personally in terms of doing the job. Business wise, it's not good. It's not good for anybody, you know, to be uncertain about things. You have some sports that aren't playing. You know, we have writers who cover the Big Ten and the Pac-12, and they don't have teams to write about this fall. So overall, it's not good. I know some people say like the media is rooting for it to not happen. That's not the case for plenty of reasons. Sure, there are probably some people who want to say "I told you so" because, you know, this has been more dangerous than some people predicted. But it's not good for media. It's not good for reporters that this is the state that things are in now.
Chris, taking a look around the country, obviously you have two leagues with the Mountain West and MAC. They're not playing football this fall, but whether it's in the group of five, which you focus and hone in on, or maybe in some of the so-called P5 conferences, what are some interesting storylines, maybe teams that you're thinking that may be among the nation's most improved this year?
Are you talking about the teams that are playing or the teams that aren't playing?
The teams that are playing.
You know, I'm curious. The Sun Belt could be really interesting. You know, Appalachian State's won that league 4 years in a row, but Louisiana Lafayette has made the title game 2 years in a row. They should be even better again. Billy Napier is going to be a hot coaching candidate. Arkansas State should be pretty good as well. They came out with their preseason poll today, and I think 5 different teams might have gotten first place votes. So the Sun Belt's got some really talented teams. Georgia Southern will be in there as well. In Conference USA, it's a lot of questions really from across the board. Western Kentucky needs a new quarterback. Florida Atlantic has Willie Taggart as a new head coach. Louisiana Tech has to replace a lot of guys. UAB is probably the favorite, I guess, in that league. So it's just a lot of questions, and it's hard because we didn't get spring football. You know, not having spring football is when you kind of get a sense of who could be the next guys, who could be the next team is feeling really good about themselves, and we didn't get that. So it's a lot of unknowns. I think if you're looking at the American, I mean, my thoughts are kind of what everybody else's is probably, which is UCF and Memphis and Cincinnati really probably fighting for that top spot. 2 of the 3 probably make the title game. I think SMU and Tulane will be right behind them, possibly could make a jump up. Tulane will be really interesting. They got Keon Howard, the quarterback from Southern Miss, is now leading them. So can Tulane make that jump to 8-9 wins that SMU did last year? Houston should probably be better because they probably can't be worse. That was for season that he really should be better in year 2. And then maybe, you know, they find a replacement for Malcolm Perry. Do they not? That's the whole thing when it comes down to Navy is quarterback or not.
That as far as you're talking about Houston's a team that with I know having Dana come back there, Hogelson come back, but that seems like a fan base. We've had Sam Raz on from their podcast there. It seems like they're paying him a lot of money, and they believe that, which they should believe with their program, that they are a power league program. with the basketball and football. But as far as Houston, do you think how much time do you think they'll give Holgerson before they say, hey, look, man, we're paying you like $4 million. We have their expectations are extremely high. Do you think they'll give him maybe 3 years? He's on year, 2 now, right?
Yeah, I mean, that buyout's still a lot, but they paid him Power 5 money. They built the facility because they wanted to get that Big 12 or something else invitation. And it's hard to see it happening. The Big 12, if anything, my colleague Andy Staples brought up they should try to get compact college schools to the Big 12. They should try to add the Arizonas, maybe USC or UCLA or something like that. So it's hard to find a spot where Houston makes that jump up, but you kind of got to make that presentation to make people feel like you are trying to strive for something higher, or it's going to tune people out. It's a tough spot, but they went all in to pay Holgerson by far more than anybody else in the Group 5 was making. They paid him pretty much more than I think West Virginia was paying him. And yeah, you need better results than what they did last year. And I know the De'Aaron King experiment did not work. Maybe Clayton Tune is the full-time guy and it works out better this year. But I do think they'll be improved, but you're not paying Dana Holgerson to be improved. You're paying Dana Holgerson to compete for New Year's Six bowls.
Yeah, when you were talking about the Sun Belt, you talked about App State, and App State's a program with a first-year head coach and Sean Clark, a guy that played there and has been on the staff there for several years now. But nonetheless, a first-year head coach, and the Mountaineers, they were going to have a game at Wisconsin, and now that's obviously not happening. They were going to have a game at Wake Forest, which got kicked down the road as well. They picked up games in FCS foe and Campbell, and then also a game with Marshall and a game with regional rival Charlotte. So I'm certainly not saying that they can't lose to Marshall or Charlotte, but it's even it's a manageable schedule. So if they did find a way to run the table, then you think they could be in that conversation like they nearly were a year ago?
Yeah, I mean, if App State goes undefeated, they will have a case to make for the playoff. It probably won't be as easy as UCF making that case, but it sucks to not see them play Wisconsin and to play Wake Forest. I was really looking forward to those games because this is a senior-laden team. It's a veteran team, very, very experienced team. They bring almost everybody back except for Darrington Evans, the running back, and I really wanted to see them against some really good Power 5 competition. And, I think the games with Marshall, the games with Charlotte, the local-ish type of games will be fun. I think it's a good way to make up for losing that. But, they've had Louisiana Lafayette's number, beat them 4 times in the last 2 years. And that's a really good program. So it'll be tough for the Sun Belt. I was surprised that in last year's playoff rankings that Cincinnati was ahead of Appalachian State going into the championship games. Basically knocked them out. They had no chance. But App State's done this enough years in a row now where they should be getting probably more respect than they are.
In the fact, Bubba, going all the way back, was that 2013, 14, somewhere in there when they had the first year they moved up to Division 1A, so to speak, with FBS. I'll call it the right thing, but FBS, and they were bowl eligible, but obviously moving up, they couldn't go. They've had a string of bowls like they could have gone to a bowl, obviously, if they didn't have the rule, but pretty much every single year.
Yeah, I think they've won 5 straight bowls now, something like that. 3 or 4 straight in Sun Belt titles, I guess it is now, and then those 5 straight bowl games.
Yeah, it's at least a share of 4 straight conference titles, and they're pretty heavily favored to make it 5. So it's really remarkable the transition they made with barely any. There was a little bump in the road when they first did it, but once Scott Satterfield kind of figured things out at the end of I think his second year in FBS, they've been just absolutely rolling ever since. They beat North Carolina and South Carolina last year. They're building a new end zone facility that should be open this year. So really just remarkable rise in consistency for that program to move up and barely miss a step.
something else that they did to improve the atmosphere there at Kid Brewer Stadium. They removed the track, which had been there forever. So that's really going to make for a better atmosphere also.
Yep. That's they got rid of that this offseason. They're building that new building, kind of redoing the whole deal. So I went to a game last year, the Georgia Southern game, the only game they lost, and but that was a really cool environment. It was like, I think it was Halloween, and
Halloween, right?
It was sleeting, and they still packed that place, and it was loud, and it was a good time.
Yeah, the win that night and the way that, I mean, you have to play. I mean, you obviously just have to deal with the conditions and do what you can. I mean, you can't make excuses about that. But it would have been interesting to see how that game may have played out in conditions where it wasn't so windy, because it definitely impacted the passing game. Because Georgia Southern, to their credit, took away App State's potent running attack that night.
Yep. And playing a triple option team, that's the kind of weather that helps them. And Georgia Southern broke out a couple of big runs to take a decent sized lead, and App State almost came back at the end. They had the ball at the end, the chance to tie it or win it or something, but a couple times, but couldn't follow through. And I think it was the only loss, and I was there for that one. They stayed in a hotel the night before down in Hickory. They'd never done that before, and I don't know if they've done it since. So.
I wanted to ask you a question about, not to pick on the conferences, but do you think, what kind of impact will, do you think right now, again, I preface my question because of not knowing, but the Mountain West and with the MAC bowing out for the spring, do you think that will hurt them as far as like I know there's what ifs, but if we have a season, even if it's bumps in the road and they still complete some kind of season, does that hurt them in the spring?
Not if they get through the spring. If a fall season fully happens, there's going to be a lot of maybe egg on the face of those leagues that decided not to play. But if they get through a spring season and everything's fine, I think there'll be a lot of excitement for spring. You'll be like, hey, we get 3-4 months more of college football after getting another year of college football. So I think they'll be at a disadvantage a bit because you'll have to play for 2021 because you'll have to play 2 seasons in 1 year, and there'll be problems that come along with that. But I don't know about any long-term problems unless something like, they don't get the shares of the playoff money that still yet to be resolved. There could be some like financial things here and there, but I don't expect it to hurt them much in recruiting. I mean, they made this decision for the health and safety of players. I don't think it's going to really have that much of an impact.
As far as when you talk about the different leagues right now with the ACC, when you have the SEC and the Big 12, does that help a league like you were talking about last year? I know the league is better in the ACC now with Mac Brown coming back with North Carolina, but as far as do you think with those 3 power leagues, does that push them ahead of the other 2?
I mean, the Pac-12 was already in a tough spot. They haven't made the playoff in forever. They perform poorly in bowl games. The TV, they don't make nearly as much TV money. They were already in a tough spot. The Big Ten will be fine. As soon as they come back and do it, they'll be getting 100,000 fans in their stadiums. They still make as much money, if not more, than the SEC. I don't think it'll really hurt them in recruiting in the long term, especially now that everybody's getting the year back. Eligibility wise, I think they'll be okay. The Big Ten will be fine. Big Ten has its own, problems outside of Ohio State in terms of not competing, but the ACC is a 1-team league and they manage. So I don't expect the Big Ten to be really impacted, but the Pac-12 was already in a tough spot, and they have some ground to make up.
Yeah, when you take away the last handful of years outside of the first year with Ohio State winning it, the Pac-12 and Pac-12 and the Big Ten have not been very successful, right?
Yeah, Pac-12. Oregon made the title game against Ohio State, but that was it. Washington lost to Alabama. Michigan State was the only other Big Ten team to make the playoff, and they got wiped down by Alabama. So it's really been an Ohio State, or bust, kind of like it's been Clemson or bust in the ACC.
Chris, you talk about that trip or multiple trips you made to Kid Brewer Stadium in Boone over the last few years, and what a underrated venue in your opinion App State is. So just talk about some of the other more, I don't know, maybe under the radar venues that you've been to that the college football fan, if it's someone that likes to have a bucket list and make a
Like Bubba.
Yeah, like myself, that makes a venue, whether it's going out to Boise in the blue turf, although that one wouldn't be so underrated. But I mean, just things like that maybe fans might or might not think of.
Yeah, so I haven't gone. I don't go to a ton of games like week to week. It's not like I'm traveling to a game every week, but UCF is honestly, I think it's underrated in terms of how tough it is to play there. Not just because of the team, but when that team is good, they pack the place. That entire thing is loosely built, aluminum, steel type of stuff. It's not brick. So when they call it the bounce house, and that's actually the official name of the stadium this year, the bounce house, because they had a naming rights issue. But when they do a kickoff after a touchdown and they're playing Zombie Nation, and everybody in that stadium is jumping up and down. And the press box shakes. Like it literally, the stadium is bouncing and moving around when that stuff's going on. It's a small stadium, obviously, but they are very loud. They have student sections on both sides. All of the fans are into it. It's not like you have the old school traditional fans who have been watching this team for 50 years and don't like when people are standing or something like that. It's all people who are excited about a newish thing going on. That's a very fun place to watch a game. And then I went to Army Navy last year. That was my first experience going to that game. That's obviously a absolute bucket list game. And whether or not we have a season, they are planning to play that game. It's what I wrote about today. So whenever fans are allowed back to that game, definitely one of those bucket list college football type of games.
No doubt about it. Chris, before we let you go again, can you tell folks about certainly where they can read that article and not only your articles, but obviously there's you have so many great colleagues there at The Athletic.
Yeah, theathletic.com. If you want a free trial, theathletic.com/free trial. If you want a subscription that's only $3 a month, theathletic.com/green and white noise. That's pinned at the top of my Twitter profile, which is at Chris Vannini. We've got Andy Staples, Stuart Mandel, Bruce Feldman, Nicole Auerbach, Max Olson, Matt Fortuna, David Ubben. Just we have I think the most talented and deepest college football writing roster there is, and you get what you pay for. I think Dave, you could probably vouch for that. It's not a lot of money, but there's no ads on the site. It's very clean and easy to read. The app is great, and we cover every sport, every team there is, pro sport. So if you follow the Panthers or the Carolina Panthers or the Hurricanes or something like that, we have them covered as well. So hope you guys check us out if you haven't yet.
No doubt. And Chris, we're going to have you back on obviously during the season, and hopefully there won't be a lot of bumps in the roads. Hopefully I'm not jinxing it right now, but hopefully we can have a smooth season and we can talk to you sometime in the middle of the season. Love to have you back on.
Yep. If we get through the season, throw a party, just I'm not so concerned about who's going to win conferences, championships, whatever. Like, I just want to make it through the season. And if we do that and everybody's okay, then party's on and let's enjoy it.
And Bubba's buying, right? All right. Thanks, Chris. Have a good night, man. Appreciate you so much. Enjoy his work. Chris Vannini of The Athletic. Again, I'm not just being nice. He really does a great job, Bubba. And I've shown you the articles. They do fantastic work. And I think that I pay annually $40 for the entire year. And I truly look at it every single day because it's really good. I'm not doing like an infomercial for The Athletic, but when I come on and I brag about something, it's because I really mean it and I really believe it. And I did take a chance. I didn't know anything. I think they started around that time, right, Bubba, in 2018 or 17 or 18, somewhere around there. They were pretty much brand new.
That sounds right. They certainly haven't been around a very long time. But yeah, I remember when they were coming into existence, Dave, like you're saying, and just seeing that list. Bruce Feldman, Stuart Mandel, Andy Staples, et cetera, and they certainly have a who's who of college football writers and do a terrific job.
No question about it. Make sure again, theathletic.com, and again, when you the app, Bubba, even like for my phone, and then not only the app, but you have the website, the app, but obviously social media. They're always breaking stories, and they put it up there on, for example, I've seen it some on Twitter, but the most I see it on is Facebook. They're putting story after story after story. So you're getting your money's worth there. Let's talk about programming. We'll promote our shows and we'll get out of here. We've got obviously kids to get to sleep, and certainly we have to go to bed too. So, Bubba, thank you so much for obviously your hard work. I know we had 50 Pirates in 50 days. That's continuing, and we'll try to get that done. We pushed it back a little bit. It was supposed to be done by August 29th, but obviously we have some buy days, not buy games, but buy days in there because we're trying to stretch it out a little bit. To the plan was to obviously, like last year, to have it to end the day before the season started, and the season got moved back, so we pushed our days back a little bit, right, Bubba?
Yep. Like you said, it was really a countdown to kickoff against Marshall on August 29th, but we bumped that back. So instead of 50 Pirates in 50 days, it's going to be like or more like 50 Pirates in about 64, 65 days. But nonetheless, don't hold us to that. Just enjoy the interviews. Some excellent conversations this afternoon. I caught up with Quentin Cotton. We've been trying to get Quentin on the program for quite some time, but it was tough coordinating our schedules. But appreciate him coming on. He said he's a big fan of what we're doing. He's enjoyed hearing from Pirates from a variety of eras, and especially his former teammates, hearing how those guys. It's hard to believe that Quentin Cotton, this will be 12 years now since he played his final football season. Yeah, and wow. It was that third game of that 2008 season when Quentin went down, unfortunately, as we talked about in that interview against the Tulane Green Wave down at the Superdome. So
wow,
definitely check that out. It was right at an hour with Quentin. Talked about a number of things. We'll have one of his former teammates, J.J. Millbrook, who's also on the defensive side of the ball, defensive back, safety. We'll talk to J.J. Millbrook on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. right here on Facebook and YouTube Live. Friday night, a guy that's been on the program before, I cannot recall whether it was on 50 Pirates in 50 days. I don't think it was, but George Kuntz, who played 2 years for East Carolina after transferring in from Chowan, and then went on to just an excellent career with the Green Bay Packers, and played his final season with the Seattle Seahawks. But we'll talk to George. He's working up in Wisconsin at a small school, Marion University, right now. And so we have those headed your way. And then also tomorrow afternoon, I'll be catching up with Jamie Shaw of the Absolute Basketball Experience. Jamie does a terrific job covering recruiting, and here recently Joe Dooley and staff have gotten 2 commitments. R.J. Felton, 6'4", out of Aiken, South Carolina, and then also Dondre Watson out of Moravian Prep up in Hickory. He's 6'8" or 6'9", extremely athletic. I think he started playing the game pretty late, so he does have some development to do, but a very high ceiling with what I saw the film with Dondre Watson.
Bubba, we've been working hard, you and me and Kyle, on getting the guests. By the way, folks, if you have an idea for a guest you want to be on, thesportsobj@gmail.com. You can email, or you can email me directly as well, David Richmond at thesportsobjective.com. Bubba, I'm so excited with it seems like hopefully day by day I'm feeling more confident, and I will continue to feel that way until I'm told differently. And thanks to the Chancellor Ron Mitchelson for giving it. In fact, yes, we're going to play, and it's tough not to have fans. It's tough. I can't imagine not having the tailgating. I understand why. I'm not saying that I disagree with it, but it's definitely challenging as far as what we have in our mind of what the game day atmosphere is supposed to look like. But at this point, like you and I have talked about on the air and off the air a ton, if we can just get ball games, that's a huge win, right? I mean, we'll just have to deal with the what would be a really terrible normally a terrible game day atmosphere with no fans, tailgating, and no fans in the stands, which is crazy. Just the fact that we're having games is going to be tremendous. So I hope that I have you. That I know you have with Riley having a ball game, but I'm hoping that you'll be with me that night in the press box. Who knows what's going to happen? We'll have to cross that bridge when we get there, right?
Yep. Hopefully we'll be playing football here in about 3 weeks or so. But I guess 3.5 weeks. But really look forward to that. Hopefully it will. I say 3.5 weeks, 2.5 weeks. I've lost all track of time with. I just hopefully we'll be playing football in 2.5 weeks, and because you think about it, we would be. This would be game week, and we would be what, 4 days away.
Yeah, it's crazy, and still no high school football in North Carolina, which is tough. I know we're broadcasting around the world, so appreciate it very much. All right, so thank you so much to Dave Ryan, formerly of ESPN, of course, of CBS Sports, and has a house full of kids. He's tremendous. We had fun with him. And Chris Vannini is awesome with The Athletic. Again, folks, theathletic.com. It's a product I believe in, and make sure that you check that out. Thank you so much, Bubba. Appreciate you, man, for all that you do on air and behind the scenes. And until next time, you've been watching and listening to The Sports Objective. Good night, everybody, and go Pirates.